which has been troubling quite a lot. So I would like to now invite Ms. Sridevi Srinath, our student counselor at SRM University, AP, to take us through this session. Over to you, Sridevi.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope I'm audible. Yes, can someone tell me if I'm audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Good evening, everybody, my students, colleagues. I'm so glad you're here today. All right. So as the title suggests, in and out of depression, I was thinking if it was only that easy to combat depression, but unfortunately it's not. But what we can do is either mediate it or at least try to find ways to overcome it little by little. So without further ado, let me share my presentation. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yes, wait, madam.
Yes. All right. So while we're waiting for that, there are a few things that I want to say. Even though I am going to be talking about depression, I am going to be talking about symptoms and causes. There is a short assessment that you can do. The scores of the assessment, of course, will be confidential because you will be taking the assessment and you will be scoring it yourself. I will give you the interpretation. I will not be giving you the exhaustive list of symptoms because I don't want you to feel like, I don't want you to self-diagnose, one. And two, this is not a session on clinical depression. This is depression as a mood or a feeling that a lot of us have time to time. And this session is based on that. I will, however, be talking about clinical depression as well, but only for a brief period. I think my...
You can, madam, now.
Yes. All right. So in and out of depression, these are the three things I would be covering today. I'm going to be talking about what it is. We'll do a short assessment and we'll talk about behavioral activation. So this is today's session. Tomorrow's session, I will be talking about how to change negative thought process, how to think, how to look for negative thought process. So in the first section, I'll be talking about the meaning and overview of symptoms and its causes. All right. So depression, as I mentioned, is a word that we use every day to describe different feelings like sadness, frustration, disappointment, and even sometimes like lethargy or procrastination, right? But in clinical practice, depression or major depression is a little different. So this refers to a down period, but something that lasts for 2 weeks or more. The difference between depression that we face or regularly or like on a daily basis, and this is that major depression is a lot more intense. It also lasts for 2 weeks or more, and it also significantly interferes with your effective day-to-day functioning. So what does effective day-to-day functioning mean? It can be something as basic as your daily grooming, your brushing, bathing, changing of clothes, or it can be cooking or eating. So something as common as that can get significantly affected due to major depression. So depression as a syndrome is a collection of behaviors and feelings that have been found to characterize a depressed person or depressed people as a group, right? So what are these different symptoms that we or anyone who is quote unquote depressed may go through? So it may range from mood, physical, thinking, or your social interaction. the extent to which each person feels each of these symptoms completely depends on that person and varies person to person. There may be people who may have more severe mood related symptoms as opposed to, your physiological symptoms. Some people may have excessive thinking symptoms or may have issues in social interaction as opposed to the other symptoms. So mood in mild form of depression, people may not feel bad all day. They may feel a little bit of gloom, may feel a little down or a little blue, but it would be easy for them to lift up their mood if there is a positive experience, but they may fall into disappointment and sadness as easily as that if there is any minor discomfort. In a severe form, low mood persists throughout the day, and even doing pleasurable activities may not be able to lift up their mood, right? Like going out with their friends or, watching a movie or eating something that they like. Those things may also not uplift their mood. Now, there are times where low moods may fluctuate during the day, where it's a little worse in the morning but gets better in the afternoon. This is called diurnal variation, and it also sometimes accompanies severe type of depression, right? So addition to your low mood of sadness, other common symptoms that you might have are anxiety, depression, guilt, worthlessness and inadequacy, excessive stress. All of these are also part of your mood symptoms of depression. Thinking. Now, I'm sure all of you would have noticed that when you are depressed or when there are people who are not in a very good mood around you, they tend to think in a very negative light. So they might see themselves in a negative light. They might see the world around them in a very negative light. They may have very low self-esteem and self-confidence. They tend to dwell on how bad they feel or all the bad things that are happening around them. It's very common to have an overall negative outlook towards other people and themselves. In social interaction, they may be unhappy and dissatisfied with their family, with their close relations. They may feel shy and anxious when they're with other people or when they have to meet other people. They may self-isolate. They may feel lonely. At the same time, they're unwilling or unable to reach out to other people or talk to other people. These are things I'm sure are very easily noticeable even amongst your friends or even within yourself. You must have noticed that be times, periods of lowness where you just don't want to talk to people. You feel like, I'm better off alone. So these are some common symptoms that people who are depressed may feel. Now, physical symptoms. Physical symptoms are the first way to figure out if you are falling into the pit of despair. One is change in your sleeping pattern. Sleeping pattern is something that gets affected the first, even when you're not depressed but you're just anxious or you're stressed about something. The first thing that gets affected is your sleep. You either sleep a lot or you find it very difficult to fall asleep. So both can happen. Some people tend to fall asleep very easily and sleep for hours together and find it difficult to wake up. Others may find it very difficult to go to sleep itself. Appetite gets affected again. Excessive weight gain and excessive weight loss in a short period of time is something, if that happens, is worrisome. You should try to figure out why that is happening. We all stress eat at times. It's very common, but this is different. This is when you either start eating a lot more for a very long period of time, or you find yourself skipping meals very often. Energy levels may fall, and that can lead to lack of motivation, that leads to inability to do your daily activities. Body pain because of excessive sleeping or just lack of motivation, you won't find yourself moving as much as you would. You'd probably find yourself in the same spot a lot, not being able to do any physical exercise. So a lot of body pain or joint pain is quite common. So to identify if you have any symptoms of depression, these are some things that you can ask yourself. How does my life change when I'm depressed? What have I noticed about what I do or don't do when I'm depressed? How does my view of myself, others, and future change when I'm depressed? And what do other people notice about me when I'm depressed? More often than not, other people are the first ones to notice a change in us than we do. I'm sure you'll find your friends saying, "Oh, you don't seem happy these days," or "Are you not eating properly? You look really dull these days," or "Why aren't you talking as much as you used to?" Our friends and people around us are more perceptive of us than we are of our own behaviors. So, if your friend or if your family members ask you this question, it's good to take a step back and evaluate how you're feeling, because you might find yourself slipping. Right. If anybody has any doubts in the middle, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and once I'm done, I will answer all your queries. Right. Moving on, what causes depression? Depression has different reasons. It can be biological, it can be psychological. In biological factor, first one is genetics. Depression, like a lot of other mental disorders, run in the family. Now, this does not mean if one of your closest family member has depression, you will also have depression. No, it just means that you may be vulnerable to developing depression. If, for example, like when you go to a doctor and you talk about, when you go for a checkup, they take a history. The same way, if you go to a counselor or any mental health professional or a psychiatrist, they will take a case history or your family history. This is to determine whether you are at a high vulnerable or susceptible stage or not, right? So our brain goes through a lot of changes before and after and during a depressive episodes, and certain parts of your brain may get affected, and this may result in either over or under production of certain hormones that may account for symptoms of depression. Even if you just Google CT scan of the brain, normal brain and a depressed brain, you will see a stark difference, right? Brain chemicals. So it's believed that during depression, there is a lot of reduced activity of neurotransmitter systems. And this may be the reason why there is a lot of problems in sleep, appetite, your sexual drive, and your mood. Moving on to psychological factors. The first and the most important is thinking. If you find yourself thinking a lot of negative thoughts, it's so easy to rile yourself up and put yourself in a bad mood. It doesn't even have to be very serious. It's just when you overthink and then you just end up going off in a very negative thought process tangent, and that can happen. So thoughts like over stressing about the negative, taking responsibility for bad events but not for the good events, so always looking at all of the negative things that's happening, not being flexible about rules about how one should behave, having very set sort of rules about life and everything else could also cause a lot of psychological harm, because you may follow the rules that you have for yourself and expect others, but others may not follow your rule. That could lead to a lot of frustration. Thinking about what others are thinking and thinking that they may be thinking badly of you, right? Or I feel like they're all talking badly of me, or they're gossiping about me. If you see two people, sometimes you'll see if there are two people who are laughing and they happen to look in your direction, or maybe they're laughing at me. Of course, this thinking list is not an exhaustive list. This is just a few examples, but basically anything when you have in a very negative spectrum. The second one is loss. The most common factor that can lead to depression is either loss of a loved one, or bereavement or separation, loss of a job, of a friendship, loss of promotion, loss of support, loss of money. Just general loss can cause depression. Sense of failure, when you have set a goal for yourself and you are unable to achieve it no matter what you do, or you try and you just keep failing at that one goal that is very, very important for you, may increase the chances of you getting depression. Okay, again, when I say depression, I do not mean clinical depression. I just want to reiterate, I just mean depression as a low mood here, right? And stress, excessive stress or accumulation of stress, where you've just had a stressful 2 months or 3 months, where you have so much work, or you just are unable to make deadlines, or you're just unable to keep up with the times. Right now we're all in the middle of a pandemic, and everybody is excessively stressed, right? We're stressed because we're either stuck at home all the time, we're not able to go out, we're not able to be as social as we used to be, we're not able to do the things that we would want to do, and that could add on to the feeling of depression, right? So does anybody have any doubts till now, or anything that they would like to ask? No?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
My question is, you have explained various symptoms of being in depression. Is there any chance that a person can be depressed and still don't express any of this, or don't show any of these symptoms outside? Maybe if it is sadness, for example, when he's at work, he may not be able to express the sadness, but then it is there deep inside. Is there any chance that that can be categorized as depression?
100%. Actually, of late, there is a new term. It's called high functioning depression, high functioning anxiety. I'm sure you heard of it. So like I said, the symptoms that I mentioned, there may be a lot of the different permutation and combination of symptoms that people feel, right? So even if you're not feeling, there may be a possibility that you are sad, you are stressed, you are anxious, you are depressed, but you're still able to do your work. But there are other symptoms that you may face. For example, you might have a lack of sleep, or excessive sleeping, or it may manifest itself in physical symptoms. So you might have body pains or appetite issues, or you might have other mood like excessive anger, or sudden panic attacks. So all of this could also be a part of depression, not just your regular sadness. I hope
Okay.
that's a question.
Yeah.
How is clinical depression different from culmination of stress? And how can one know if he or she is suffering from clinical depression? All right. So clinical depression, like I mentioned, is when you have certain symptoms for over 2 weeks. To get diagnosed with, if you need a proper diagnosis of clinical depression, you will either have to go see a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist who will administer assessments, do interviews, and then give you a diagnosis. So like doctors, mental health professionals have a diagnostic manual that comes with a list of symptoms for every mental disorder that's there, and based on that we give a diagnosis. I hope that answered your question, Rukma. Anybody else? No? All right. Okay, so moving on. This is a short assessment. This assessment is called General Health Questionnaire, and this questionnaire has 12 questions with 4 options for you to choose from. To give you a little background about this, GHQ is a very common assessment that is done by doctors and mental health professionals. Not this one in particular, but there are different a length of assessment. I think the original one comes with 60 statements. This is the most shortened version. Generally, GHQ is used to determine if a person has anxiety, or if they have depression, or if they have insomnia, or any physical somatic problems. This, however, is to check if someone has any sort of psychological distress. That is all that this test assesses, only distress. So if you do get a score, and if your score interpretation says you have severe psychological distress, it just means that you may have excessive stress or anxiety. That's about it. Does not mean that you have clinical depression or depression. I just want to make that clear. Another thing, this assessment is not a clinical assessment, which means that this is just for your knowledge, for you to get a little bit more understanding. Right. So as I mentioned before, there are 12 statements, 12 questions, and each question has 4 options. Please be very, very honest when you answer these questions. The answers you are not going to share with anyone, and it is for you only. So answer as honestly as possible. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers, and don't ponder over any question for a very, very long time. Just instinctually what you feel, you can answer. So these are the first 4 statements. I'll wait for about 2 minutes. I think it should be easy for you to go through them. And once this is done, I'll move on to the next page. The first statement is, first question is, have you recently been able to concentrate on what you're doing? The options are better than usual, same as usual, less than usual, much less than usual. You'll see that there are numbers next to each option. You can just write down that number in your notebook or a piece of paper, or your phone, whatever that you have next to you. The second question is, have you recently lost much sleep over worry? The options are not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, and much more than usual. Again, you do not have to share your responses with me. This is for you only. The third question is, have you recently felt you were playing a useful part in things? The options are more than usual, same as usual, less useful than usual, and much less useful. The fourth is, have you recently felt capable of making decisions about things? More than usual, same as usual, less so than usual, and much less capable. Okay, I'm just going to wait for another minute and then move on. I hope you're all done. This is the next set of questions. Have you recently felt constantly under strain? The options are not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, and much more than usual. Sixth is, have you recently felt you couldn't overcome your difficulties? Not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, and much more than usual. Have you recently been able to enjoy your normal day-to-day activities? More than usual, same as usual, less so than usual, much less than usual. Been able to face up to your problems. Options are more than usual, same as usual, less so than usual, and much less able.
Say this to yourself every day.
I hope all of you are done. And this is the last set of questions. Question number 9 is, have you recently been feeling unhappy and depressed? Not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, and much more than usual. Been losing confidence in yourself? Not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, and much more than usual. The 11th question is, have you recently been thinking of yourself as a worthless person? Not at all, no more than usual, rather more than usual, much more than usual. And the last one is, have you recently been feeling reasonably happy, all things considered? No more than usual, same as usual, less so than usual, much less than usual. So once you're done with all of the 12 questions, I'm hoping that you have all written down the number next to the option that is most relevant to you. I want you to add all of the numbers that you have written down. Just going to wait for a minute. Okay. So this is the interpretation of the scores. If you've gotten anything between 0 and 12, it means you have it's a very typical score. If it is between 13 and 15, which is 13, 14, and 15, it means that there is some evidence of distress. And if it is 16 and above, it means severe psychological distress. Again, I'm just reiterating, this does not mean you have depression or you have anxiety or you have stress. It means that you may have some symptoms of anxiety or stress, and it can be dealt with. So you can contact me or the other counselor, Miss Liza. We both are available. And if you think that you need any assistance or any help with anything, right? Before I move on, does anybody have any doubts? What about 26? Yes, 26 is above 16, which means that there is severe psychological distress. Again, and for the last time, it does not mean you have depression or it's not a confirmed diagnosis. This has nothing to do with a diagnosis. This is just a self-assessment to understand your psychological well-being. That is all that there is. If you think your score is really high and you're worried, again, you can contact me or Miss Liza, who's the other counselor, and we can set up a counseling session, right? moving on to our last portion, behavioral activation. So in this session, I'll be talking about the meaning of behavioral activation, and I'll also have a short worksheet for you that you can possibly practice at home, right? So behavioral activation is basically, I've been talking about depression and how people have low motivation, are very lethargic, are not able to do day-to-day activity and all of that. So behavioral activation is basically trying to combat those feelings and try to do something so that you feel like your life is not slipping out of your hand. You feel like you don't have enough time of day to get your work done, right? So a lot of times when you are depressed, or when there is when you have low activity levels, it also leads to you becoming a little less motivated and more lethargic, right? So that then again snowballs into not being able to do the things that you like, and then snowballs into missing out on experiences, like either with your friends or at work or anything. And then it just snowballs into a vicious cycle of just feeling low and slumpy and just like sad, right? So like I mentioned, a good way to beat it is to increase your activity level by doing activities that are pleasurable, that make you have fun, and it'll also help you sort of tackle the list of tasks and responsibilities that you have. But to be able to do that, it has to be done in a very realistic and achievable way. For example, if you have been unable to sleep at night and you sleep very late, which means that you're waking up very late, which means every task in that you are supposed to do that day gets pushed till very late at night, and again that cycle sort of continues, right? Now say if you're getting up at around 11 a.m. in the morning, and you decide, okay, I don't like waking up late because it's messing with my daily schedule, I want to start waking up early, and you keep an alarm for 7 a.m. in the morning. Okay, first 2 maybe 3 days you will do it because you have like, you're pumped with energy, and you just, by the 4th day you're going to find yourself slipping again. Why? Because the gap between 7 and 11 is very, very big, and it's not easy for your body and your mind to make such a big drastic change in such a short period of time. So the best way to go about it is slowly reducing the gap. So instead of waking up at 11, try waking up at 10 or 9:30 first. Let your body get acclimated, get used to that, and then shift to about 8:30. When you're comfortable with that, then move to 7:30 and 7. So when you slowly decrease, you will not feel like you are unable to achieve things, because you are giving yourself very achievable, attainable, realistic goals that may give you, that may make you feel like you've achieved something, like you have a grip on things. So why is it important to do activity, to be active? One, it helps you feel better. At the bare minimum, at the very least, what it will do is it will distract you for a little bit. Even if it is 5 minutes of distraction from feeling sad or feeling slumpy or feeling down, that is 5 minutes of you feeling good. So it can give you a sense of you moving forward, you having more control of your life, you experiencing the sense of achievement that you have finally done something. So you are finally moving forward. It helps you feel less tired. You might think that sleeping and sitting and doing nothing will make you, you're not using so much energy. So why am I feeling tired? Why am I feeling so lazy? Because you're sitting in the same place and not doing anything. Your body is just in like hibernate mode. And when you're doing nothing, it gives you time to ruminate on negative thoughts. They always say, right, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. If you're not keeping yourself stimulated, you will slip into a negative, you might slip into a negative thought. Now, this does not mean you have to constantly be active and hustling 24/7. That's not what I'm saying. It's not like, oh, I should be studying and I should be working and I should just be doing something all the time. It just means that instead of just sitting and doom scrolling on your phone all the time, maybe you can pick other hobbies that you've not done in a very long time, and something that you like doing when you were in school or when you were little, you haven't touched in a while. Start that, or start something that you wanted to do for a very long time but just haven't found the right time or motivation for it, right? Activity can also help you think more clearly. You would have noticed you would be very good at helping your friends solving problems. Giving advice comes so easy to all of us, but taking the same advice is so difficult. That happens because we never step out of our own situation and we never look at it from a different perspective. A lot of times when you're doing other things, suddenly there'll just be like a click, like an aha moment in your mind, and you will find a better, you might start thinking clearly about a situation, or you might find a solution to a problem that's been bothering you for a little while, right? So this is a short behavioral activation worksheet. If you want this, you can email me later. I can send it to you as a Google Doc. So it'll be easy for you, so don't worry. So like I mentioned before, engaging in some simple pleasant activities can improve your mood and your energy level. Often accomplishing tasks can improve your motivation, give you a sense of achievement, and it will help you feel like you are in control of your life. So you start with tasks that are simple and achievable. See, the important words here are achievable, simple, realistic, so that you don't feel like you're not able to do things. If you set very big goals that you think are not out are out of reach at the moment, you're just setting yourself up for failure, and that's just going to add on to you already feeling really bad. So what you can do is you can make a rating scale. This is one that I have, 0 to 8. So 0 being absolutely none to 8 being extreme. You have mild, slight, minimal, slight, mild, moderate, much, high, higher, very high, extreme, right? So you can just make your own. If this is not something that you like, it doesn't matter. Then you basically make a chart where you write down an activity and the date. Then you write down in another box, you write down depression, pleasure, and achievement. So you rate your depression, pleasure, and achievement before the activity and after the activity to get a more quantitative look at how you're feeling. A lot of us, believe numbers more than we do feelings and emotions. This is a good way to get ahead of that. Again, depression here does not mean clinical depression. It just means excessive low mood, right? That's what depression here means. This is also a good way for you to figure out if there are activities that make you feel worse. Sometimes we do things and we think that it's making us feel good, but actually by the end of it, we might end up feeling more anxious and more sad than we started out. So this is a good way to keep a track of all of that. Yeah, so coming to the end of the session, this is a short summary. When people are depressed, they may experience a loss of motivation, energy, and that often stops them from engaging in activities that might lift their mood. This decrease in activity levels may perpetuate depressed moods, as people may become even less motivated and lethargic. Daily tasks and responsibility might be neglected as well. And when a depressed person thinks of things they have to do, they may feel overwhelmed by the long list. So you might want to start tackling your list of things to do by starting with small or simple tasks to give you a sense that you have achieved something, right? again, if you the assessment, if you have gotten a high score and you're worried, you can get in touch with me or the other counselor, Miss Liza, and we can talk about it and we can figure it out. Does anybody have any doubts? Because this is the last slide and I'm done with the presentation. So tomorrow's session is on how to figure out if you are having negative thoughts, how to break the cycle of negative thoughts, how to break down the negative thoughts and feelings that you're having, and also trying to differentiate between thinking and feeling. A lot of times we think that what we are thinking is what we are feeling. And so those are the things that I'm going to cover in tomorrow's session, right? Does anybody have any doubts or any clarifications?
How can we contact you, ma'am?
I think Revati ma'am has my number, and we can send you a counseling intake form, so you can fill that up and we can set up an appointment.
Okay, ma'am. I will look into that.
Yeah. Anyone else? Separations are very hard. Any sort of separation, it can be a romantic one, it can be a platonic one. I think that is, as painful, and you go through like stages of grief, right? It's very easy for me to say the first step is acceptance, but it takes a lot more than just acceptance that it's over. I think recognizing parts of any relationship where you see what were good and what were bad and looking at it objectively. A lot of times what happens when there is separation, we tend to look at everything good that happened and completely dismiss all the wrong that we have done and what the other person has done, right? Because we're feeling so sad and we long for that relationship to come back. We want that person back in our life. So we'll do and say anything that is very, very, anything that would get us back. I think the best way to start healing is to look at the relationship that you had from a very objective point of view. Write down everything that you liked about that relationship and also everything that you did not like about the relationship. Once you start writing down, you'll see a lot of flaws that you have had, a lot of flaws that your partner or the other person has had, and you'll start to notice like patterns of sadness or discomfort that was there in the relationship, and that would give you a better standing of that relationship being, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing that it's ended. It's very subjective is all I can say. So if you want to know more, please. How to deal with severe frequent panic attacks and anxiety. Right. So panic attacks and severe anxiety is can be very debilitating. For any disorder or any psychological distress, is all I can say is there is so much behind it that there is no hack. There is no, I have a stomach pain, so you can drink this kashayam or you can drink that water and it will get fixed. To begin with, what you can do is, and this is something that I generally tell people to make it a practice, is to start journaling. Once you start writing down and maintaining a diary, you will start to notice a pattern where what causes that anxiety or what is causing that panic attack. A lot of times we don't realize that there are certain triggers that we have. Knowingly or unknowingly, we trigger ourselves. That is also a possibility. If you do, and then if you have panic attacks, you will also have telltales before the panic attacks. Like you will feel the panic attacks setting in before it starts off. A best way, a very good way to stop is deep breathing. It's called boxed breathing. You can look it up on YouTube. What it is you basically breathe in, hold your breath, breathe out, and hold your breath for the same count. So say you breathe in through your nose for 5 counts, you hold your breath for 5 counts, you breathe out for 5 counts, and then you stop for 5 counts, and then you repeat that cycle. You do that about 2-3 times. That what it does is it slows down your heart rate. It also will shift your focus. Another thing that you can do is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. Again, this is something that you can look up on YouTube. There are a lot of videos on this. So it's basically 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. I think that's what it is. It is a grounding exercise basically to shift your focus from whatever is triggering a panic attack. But if you are having a like excessive panic attacks or excessive anxiety, I would recommend